Morning. Thank you for joining me. Today's podcast is about the 57 nations, Islamic nations, that convened in Doha, Qatar. An emergency summit was called by the Prime Minister of Qatar, where they discussed what the future holds for them with Bibi, Israel, and future attacks that will be conducted for eradicating Hamas. This is an unprecedented meeting because that's right, Pierre, it's important to remember that when people meet really quickly like this, the emergency is real. Remember when the COVID-19 happened and 190 countries jumped on board and they all met? There was a meeting of the minds where they decided that this was how they were going to proceed. Well, in Doha, a moment in history, because no other time had this urgency taken place. And it's all because of one country that is just poking the bear to see how far they can push. It's important to remember that this is important because no other time in history has something like this happened. And you have to remember the urgency of it. Israel has been attacking all its neighbors in the defense. Israel's defense force is called, the IDF is called the Defense Force, but it seems that they're always on the offensive because the countries that they're attacking are not really, they're not supposed to be attacking these people. They are only doing this to see how far they can go with their regime and to keep Israel and the United States in perpetual war. This perpetual war, the only people that are benefiting from it are the shareholders of military industrial complex. The reason I can speak to this is because I was able to have an inside conversation with one of my followers who's in the military, who states that they want to control the world population through war and through pandemics. And this is really it's really disturbing to me because I want to know how long this will go for. How many men do we have to send overseas to fight somebody else's war when we gain absolutely nothing for ourselves? The amount of poverty in North America and Europe is astronomical. And Germany doesn't even have a manufacturing base anymore. And yet they're going to spend $800 billion on defense. Do you know that Germany doesn't even have fuel anymore? Yeah, after they cut ties with Russia, they had to shut down their major industry because they don't have enough fuel. And yet they're bringing in more people and now perpetuating this war. I'm digressing from this talk, but the talk is how important it is to the Arab nations that they all convened at the same place. 57 countries dropped everything and went and talked to each other about the concerns that await them in the future. I really strongly suggest that you go and you watch that program on Al Jazeera, which I'm on the fence with if it's actually a news agency or a propaganda arm. But that being said, it doesn't change the fact or the message that the Iraqi president, his speech, go and watch what he said, because every one of them, they're not scared, they're concerned. And that concern is really one of those things where they're rightfully to be concerned about this, because you don't know when all of these attacks are going to stop. And with the passing of Charlie Kirk, they are going to shut down the internet. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. They're going to use this opportunity to shut down our internet. Just remember that the United States military invented the internet, knowing full well that this would be, you know how they call it social media, and they call it the mainstream media? At the end of the day, it's media. What they're trying to do is brainwash you through this whole social media. They always name it something really pretty so that you can identify with it, because everybody wants to be social and everybody wants to think that they're in control of their own media, and you're not. Because what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say is really different. You can say things and then you can get canceled immediately. And we belong in the cancel culture, as we saw in the early 2000s when people were starting to get canceled, and then it really ramped up in the 2010s, and then by 2020 they had us locked in. And there was nothing anybody could do. We were all sitting at home, playing with our computers and becoming social. And now that social engineering is near the end. And because it's near the end, they're able to shut it down. I don't want these talks or these lives to be a place of where we live in fear or anything like that. I want people to understand that it's important that we come together and really just forge our tribe, as the Arab League has done. 57 countries gathered in a matter of a few days. It takes a lot for diplomats and prime ministers and presidents to drop everything and go to another country. There's a lot of security involved. There's a lot of detail. There's a lot of aircraft. It's amazing how it was done so quickly. But the Arab leagues are very rich. They're very wealthy. And that because of that wealth, they're able to pivot very quickly. Unlike the Americans. You see, America is bankrupt. $37 trillion and counting is their debt. There's no way that they're able to pay this debt off. And I want people to understand that the Muslims are going to take over the world. They're going to take over. They've taken over major centers. They've taken away. They've taken over the states and the judiciaries. They're now going to be judges. They are your doctors. They are your engineers. And it's interestingly enough that nobody sees it happening until people start to actually talk about it. And this is why I wanted to make this podcast today, because I want people to understand that the winds of change have come, and there is nothing anybody can do about it. You see, when you bomb a country like Qatar, unprovoked, a sovereign nation, there's got to be repercussions. There's got to be retribution. And it's interesting that the Israelis bombed Doha using an American base, using British fuel tankers that were dispatched out of the Air Force base in Qatar. That is something astonishing, and that is pure zealot. You can't say it any other way. But that is a betrayal, a backstabbing, especially after Qatar gave that beautiful $400 million Boeing to Mr. Trump. But one thing that's really peculiar to me is, why is Donald Trump's Air Force One, if it's a security concern, why all of a sudden is it even allowed to be gifted? Can't they fuck with the wiring? Can't they put microphones and sensors? So when you say that the United States of America, they're not united at all. They're not united at all. It's the states now. Great Britain used to be called Great Britain. Now it's called Britain. They're losing their hegemony in the world. And the Arab League of Nations, well, that conversation is to be continued. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share so that I get my message out. Sometimes I have nothing to say, and some things I have a lot to say. And thank you so much for joining me today.